Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how to replace the rocker cover gaskets and plug seals. This comes after taking my car in for its annual rego inspection, New South Wales, and having it failed due to what they say were leaking gaskets, leaking distributor O-ring and some holes in the rear muffler. So I'll make separate videos on how to change the distributor O-ring and the rear muffler, which I've got coming in the post. But for now I'll just talk you through and show you how to change the rocker cover gaskets and plug seals. So a few things that we'll need for this job is a socket set, some degreaser just to clean out where the spark plugs are, because chances are there's probably oil sitting in there, pooled in there. And I've got another socket set here because you need I've got a 5/8 socket there to remove the spark plug. You'll need the rocker cover gaskets and the plug seals. Just be mindful when you're searching for these to look for a kit, not a set. The sets are normally just one, and you'll need both for both banks. So yeah, I'll get started. You need a 10mm socket to remove the 6 bolts. Then I'll remove the leads, and then I'll remove the plugs, and then we should be clear to remove the front cover. You can see there that they're just hand tightened. I don't have a torque wrench, but it's important not to over tighten these, otherwise you'll warp the cover. Okay. Okay, so we've got the front cover off. This pipe here, ordinarily I wouldn't remove that because you can just kind of lift the cover out of the way, but I just wanted to give you a better look at the original gasket. There is some disintegration there. So I'll go ahead and remove that. And I'll also remove the spark plugs and just give those chambers a bit of a clean out with the degreaser before refitting. The spark plugs aren't too old, so I plan to just reuse those because they're Bosch Platinums and the car hasn't done many miles due to the scandemic, so I'm just going to reuse those spark plugs. with the rocker cover off, we've fitted the new gasket. There is a way that this goes on, so just be mindful of that. As in, there is a difference in the distance between the bolt holes on the lower part and the top. And if you're having some trouble refitting the rocker cover without the gasket falling out, because it just kind of sits in there, I suggest, I'm not sure that this is something that is recommended, but it works for me, is just a couple of dabs of super glue just in points around the gasket, just to hold it in place. Otherwise I find it just keeps falling out when you go to actually refit the cover. Another thing just to note in terms of buying the gasket and the plug seals is that on eBay, where I bought this kit from, you'll find them advertised for the Mitsubishi Pajero and other cars that had the 6G74 motor fitted. So don't necessarily be put off if it just says Pajero only and doesn't mention the Magna. What you'll find is that the gaskets and the plug seals will fit any 6G74, 72 and 75. So this particular kit that I bought was advertised as fitting only the Pajero 6G74, and it was about $30 delivered, whereas the cheapest kit that said it fit a Magna only was about $10 more. So yeah, just a tip there. Look for the engine designation rather than the actual model of car necessarily, in terms of finding the gaskets and the seals for a good price. So anyway, I'll just let this set and then I'll refit. I had a look down the chambers and they were all dry. So I just gave them a quick squirt of degreaser, but nothing too much, and I've put those spark plugs back in. I've got the plug seals fitted. Very simple. They just sit on there. So cover back on, bolt everything back up, the hoses, the leads, and then we'll move on to the rear bank. Okay, so I'll just do a check around just to make sure that the seal is seated. So I'm pretty happy with that. Spark plug leads are back in. And there's like little guides where they sit, so just make sure you get those back in properly. So I'll just give this cover a wipe down, and then we'll move on to the rear bank, which is going to be quite a challenge compared to the front, that's for sure. Okay, so onto the rear bank. The reason why it's more challenging is because we have the plenum chamber in the way, which needs to be moved. So what I'll do is I'll just show you the bolts that need to be undone and so forth to move it out of the way to gain access to the rear bank to change the gaskets and plug seals. So we've got the air intake, so I'd remove that. Bolt there, these ones. That one. And around to the back. Those two. And just watch out, there's a gasket that will likely fall out. So just be mindful of that to catch it. There's a bolt there. it is, that one. Just basically undo any bolt that's connected to the plenum chamber, to be honest. There's quite a few, so I'll crack on, and then hopefully we'll then expose the rear bank, and I'll show you how to change the gasket and plug seals on that. Okay, so we have the plenum chamber free, and I'll just show you a clearer view of the bolts that need to be removed there. That one there. And there's another one, a bracket. I think you can just see it there. So there's 3 brackets on the rear that need to be undone, but this side is better accessed from this side of the car. And I've also removed the air intake, that little pipe there, just to alleviate any stress when I lift this up. So as you can see, I don't completely remove it. Having done this job a number of times, I've just found that this is enough access. Propping the plenum chamber up with a rubber mallet or a large screwdriver, whatever you want to do. But this gives me enough access to get the job done. Alright, we're just about ready to remove the cover now, so I've undone all 6 bolts, and there's like a little breather pipe here. It actually connects onto the air intake, which I removed earlier, so just get rid of that. Okay, sorry, there's 2 extra bolts that I didn't realise have to come off. So that's that one there, and there's one further down. There and there. So that was just preventing the cover from releasing. It needs to come out from under these timing covers. So I'll give it another go. You can't half tell I haven't done this for a while. There is yet another hose to remove. You can just see it here, and here's the hose here with the clamp. I suggest not putting any leverage or pulling on the hose, because the distributor plug is right here and you risk breaking that, snapping it off. So I suggest actually using your thumb and actually holding the hose, but then pushing the rocker cover away from the hose, rather than pulling on the hose itself. You just don't want to risk any damage to the distributor plug, because the hose actually comes around behind it. So if you're pulling it like so, you might actually snap that, and you do not want to do that. But I think from here the whole thing is free. So we will now replace the gasket. Just one other tip is to separate the bolts that you've removed from the front of the plenum chamber and those from the rear. There really isn't any crossover here, but I just like to do that so I know how many need to go where. So once those are all on the rear, then I know there's no more that need to go on the rear, and then all of these are for the front. So just a tip. Okay, so we've got the rear cover bolted back in place. To do the front 3, you can keep this lifted, propped up with a screwdriver or something, but for the rear I suggest moving it just forwards, and just using a socket with an extension to get down there. Yeah, access isn't great, so I'll need to degrease that because that oil dripped down when I removed the cover, so I'll clean that up. But apart from that, it's now just a matter of putting it all back together. Alright, so we have all the bolts for the rear in place. So I suggest just getting them started. Don't do them all the way up yet. You need to make sure that everything will align along the front as well. But from here it is, yeah, really straightforward, just bolting everything back in place and then you'll be done. Okay, we're done. So that took probably a couple of hours. I was filming, so that kind of extended the time a little bit, but not too bad, I suppose, given the job. Just kind of fiddly, I think, more than anything. It's not a difficult job, but hopefully I've given you a few tips there. I may have missed some things, so if there is anything that you're unsure about or that I missed, just leave a comment and I'll get back to you. Got a couple more videos coming, so to pass the rego inspection, also need to replace the distributor O-ring and the rear muffler. I'm also due to do an oil change as well, so I'll film those, so stay tuned. But anyway, thanks for watching. Cheers.